Waxy Wednesdays with Wax Romantics.
All right, let's get into it. We'll start the podcast
after this. Yeah.
After this. Yeah. All right. It's starting now. All right. Now.
Penis.
Okay, welcome to Waxy Wednesdays with Wax Romantics. Another special episode this week. Robert, don't talk yet until we introduce you.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No one will have any idea what's going on. We have a guest on this episode. Julian, would you do the honors of introducing our illustrious guest?
Yeah. So today's special guest happens to be a multi-talented individual. I wasn't prepared for this. He's a musician. He's a photographer. He's overall a nice dude. He's a solid lover. He's my best friend of many years and my roommate, also bandmate, and I don't know what else. I guess kind of like smoke buddy, everything.
Midnight toker.
Yeah, it's Robert Johnson. Everybody, welcome Robert to the pod.
Woo,
thank you,
Robert.
Glad to be here. Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. So Very glad to have you on.
Yeah. I think off the bat, we should just talk about a little bit of photography things first, because technically you are the Wax Romantics photographer, and you have been, I guess. Yeah. Ever since our first show, our first little press kit was done by you.
Hell yeah.
So yeah. And I guess, I mean, photography at that point was still a relatively new thing to you. So what made you decide, like, I want to take pictures of people, and kind of what made you decide you wanted to take that step into like a semi-professional portfolio?
Oh shit. Okay. Well, yeah, it was kind of just like a hobby that my friend and I had at the time, just like taking pictures and getting out and doing there. And then Julian's like, yo, I need some pictures done for my new band. And I'm like, all right, I can do it. And I ended up enjoying myself just like 1,000 times over what I assumed what would have happened. And it ended up being just like a really wholesome and rewarding experience working with you boys. And I just started doing it more and more, and people ended up really liking my work, and kind of starting to do it more, and kind of maybe start a business out of it. But yeah, you guys kind of started it all off for me a little bit in some ways. So
that's pretty crazy, because when you were taking pictures for us, you seemed like a seasoned pro at that point. It's just pretty wild to think that, we were like one of your first photo projects. Yeah, like I said, you seemed seasoned by then. Like you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, definitely the first one that I had like gotten paid a little bit of money to do, for sure. But I definitely wanted to put the work in for you boys and do a good job. But I think I do for the most part. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of, for me at least, seems like a daunting thing to go from taking like somewhat still nature shots to like, full group, like live moving kind of full energy shots with like lots of lighting and shit like that. And it just seemed, like you stepped right into it, like your comfort zone. So I guess in another way, that kind of just speaks to the natural creativity that you have. How do you feel like, and this question might be reaching a little bit, but how do you feel like your previous kind of creative experience and creative outlets led you to photography, if you will?
It's a good question. I guess like being a musician as well, and playing with you boys even for like last 10 years in high school and shit like that. I always wanted there to be like just a professional photographer around. Like, wouldn't that be so cool if there was just like someone that would actually take cool pictures of us doing the cool shit? Because there was never any real documentation of it. But that didn't really manifest itself until like the last few years. But when I first picked up that like professional camera body, I kind of just like really made sense and kind of almost slit into like a little slot that was kind of missing out of my creative outlet. So I've got my music outlet and the photography outlet and doing videography as well. And just trying to be as out there as I can right now.
Are there similarities between composing a great photo and composing a great song?
I would say so. It's all about balance. It's all about having contrasting elements, light versus dark. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot. I think art in general, as any sort of interpretation that you can take of it, but like, I think that just balance mostly is what makes a good photo and also makes a good song as well.
That's really well said. I think that was maybe kind of something that you were talking a lot about that I'd never really heard other photographers talk about a whole lot, especially in like the editing process, is just like contrast and appropriate balance to everything. And I feel like that's what brings those photos to the next level in a lot of ways. Just as like a tangential final question here, I was kind of curious because we back in the day when me and Robert recorded an album with our band Foreign Words, we tried to document the whole process on like our iPhones and whatever shitty cameras we had. And obviously none of that footage ever really came to fruition, and probably most of it will never see the light of day. So if you were to go back and do it now with the knowledge that you have and kind of the throughput that you're able to have with your work, what'd you do differently? And also, would we document that shit to begin with, or is it just kind of a bullshit thing to do?
Knowing how much work it takes to like truly do it right, you have to, in my opinion at least, I would never want to be the person to do the documentation or like being the band's historian at that point is what it is, and also trying to like produce a record or trying to do anything else. I think that job is just as important as any others in the room, and if you try to do more than one, then you're gonna detriment one or the other, or vice versa. Yeah,
that's kind of what it ultimately felt like. Was we were either playing to a camera to try and make some footage, or we're just trying to make an album, and it's really hard to do both at the same time.
Exactly.
And always a subtle nod to the Insane Clown Posse. Thanks, Keaton.
That's fantastic. All right, I'm gonna be right back, boys. I need to change my headphones out. These are annoying the shit out of me. All right.
No worries.
Whenever it feels right, you just got to switch to that.
Which is usually like pretty immediately.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Okay,
Robert, I was going to say your professionalism even extends to Zoom. The photo quality on your webcam looks fantastic. Are you using the DSLR camera right now for your webcam, or?
Yeah, I'm using my mirrorless right now, but it took me like the last 2.5 hours and a bunch of Google searching and stuff to figure it out. Got it all together like 5 minutes before this, so it ended up.
It was worth it. You look gorgeous.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Thank you.
I do. Julian's last question would have been a good segue into Foreign Words, which I do really want to talk about. But I did have one more question for you on the photo front. I was just curious, since you got into it kind of later, have you gone back now and like studied any other photographers or like photography movements? Like, have you gone deep on anything like that? Like, would you say you have a favorite photographer now or favorite style, or are you still just kind of doing your own thing with it?
I guess it kind of replicates my musical style in some way, where I really don't have any idols in that way or anyone that I try to emulate. And maybe it's a little arrogant of me, but I'm not trying to be anyway. But also, I feel like if I try to maybe get too influenced by somebody, it'll interact with my thing and prevent me from creating something truly original for me. But that's just my opinion on it.
Totally. No, I was just curious. Because I don't know if it's probably just my perception of it, but I feel like sometimes photographers aren't treated like historic. I mean, I guess photography hasn't been around as long as other things, and maybe that's why.
It's
but
true.
I'm just not familiar with like movements of photography. Obviously, you have like Edward Abbeys and stuff like that, like doing landscapes.
Yeah, definitely.
But I was just curious.
There probably is, and I'm probably just being super culturally stupid right now. And but yeah, I probably need to really research more into it, especially if it's something that I want to pursue professionally. But for right now, I like making pretty pictures for the most part.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's working for you now, man.
Hell yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Especially like, I don't know, kind of I think this is kind of something we've touched on in the past, but like last few years, especially with like technology coming to the forefront of everything, there's just like an oversaturation of both music and photography. Like everyone with an iPhone now is a photographer. Everyone with a MIDI keyboard is a fucking beat master. Like, becomes hard at a certain point to distinguish who's actually seriously doing it from who's just kind of got it down as a hobby. Which I guess for me personally, I guess also just being ignorant with photography, like that's what makes it really hard for me to know like who's legitimately a good photographer and who's kind of faking it. But I mean, yeah, like for certain people the work just speaks for itself, and I feel like you're definitely one of those homies where like the first time you sent us photos I was like, oh, these are phenomenal, and I think the other boys can speak to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was stoked. And like the video we did, the Chasing Moments promo.
Oh yeah, that was a fun project.
It's one of the best things I've ever seen ever. Not even just because I'm in it.
Yeah, well, and that was all with one camera, just like you running around, and also again, not really something you had done a whole lot of before. Was like
ever.
Yeah, and it turned out so good. And again, I know part of that is like the musician's ear playing to that too, like and knowing what musicians would want to see because you've been on that side of it too.
Definitely, yeah. It definitely helps.
It's funny that you are a musician and a photographer, because I don't know if you guys have heard this at all, but I have some, I guess, one or two other friends who are very casual photographers, and they've said that back in the day they used to try to get work like shooting live music photography, and they said their biggest problem with that was that musicians never thought they had to pay for photography, and that it was something they took for granted.
Definitely.
And would you have done that, Robert, being a scumbag musician before? not having photography experience?
We always paid our photographers very well, at least like the two that we maybe had. Julian might remember a little better, but I'm trying to remember even like way back in like Blue Taboo days.
I mean,
way back. I think we always paid them pretty well.
I think yeah, for the most part.
Maybe
like,
not super well, like not
money.
as much.
Yeah.
That's true.
We weren't making money either, so like it was usually out of our own pocket. But I don't know, like we used to work with Isaac Trippett. Shout out Isaac Trippett. He was like a guy that took photos for us a lot, and he I think we always had an understanding where like some shows we paid him just like a percentage, and some shows he did for free. And then later on, we started working with Connor DeMont, who did everything for free, just for experience. And his photos are also like really good. Shout out Connor DeMont. But then, yeah, when we started just hiring whoever wanted to take photos for us, we would just get messages like, hey, you know, I'll take photos at your show tonight, $50. And we would always pay them, you know, just whatever they wanted. And we never had a personal relationship with any of those photographers, but it's nice now too, just knowing who your photographer is to a certain extent. Cause like, I'm really awkward in front of a camera. And even when I'm on a stage, just like in the middle of a set, like if there's a camera pointing at me and I can see it, I'll feel weird. So it's nice to not necessarily always feel that way now.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I didn't want to talk foreign words because for our listeners, Julian is not only the drummer for Wax Romantics, but even before Wax Romantics, he is in a fantastic band with Robert called Foreign Words. And as they mentioned earlier, made an incredible debut album that you recorded in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
So
of all places.
I always get confused with the Nordics. but yeah, I have that album in my like iTunes library, and so songs come up on shuffle every once in a while. And honestly, I was like always blown away by like, oh shit, yeah, this foreign words. Like the production is amazing. You guys' musicianship on it is incredible. Julian's like fucking drum performance is out of this world. And yeah, I know you guys have talked about the recording process of that album a lot, but I don't know, Robert, if you want to give a summary of it, a run through any highlights for you.
Yeah, the whole thing. Damn. God, we were also stoned at the time.
Yeah, so let's take it back just a step. Let's talk about why we picked Sweden when we picked Sweden, because it was quite a while of buildup before it was just like, we were on a plane going to Sweden. And there was like a real reason why we decided to do it. It wasn't just like, Sweden's cool and pretty. But it was all Robert. Like he came up with the whole plan. He schemed the whole thing up and brought it to me and Will. So do you remember any of that?
I remember we really wanted to make a record. And we were thinking about places to record. We wanted to do Q Division Studios out in Boston because our producer engineer guy at the time, Chris Smith, shout out, awesome dude, used to work there and had good connections, and also is like a kick-ass drum engineer. So we wanted to go out there and record a tape, do it up, do it professionally, do it legit. So we were budgeting out, and it was like $800 a day for the studio. And then we're like, okay, like do like a week, it took like thousands of dollars. And then we're talking about like hire. That's even before you're hiring an engineer or bringing anybody in there. And then that's before you're renting a hotel and food and just anything else you want to do when you're there. And it just starts adding up like astronomically. We're looking at like $25,000 to do the level of quality that we wanted to do for the record, which, to be fair, was way more ambitious than we had any means to want to do, but we wanted to do it, or at least I wanted to do it. So
yeah, we all wanted to do it.
Yeah, we wanted to do it. So there was this guy that I'd been watching on YouTube, Hobo Rec Studios, another shout out, another amazing homie, Ulf Blomberg. And he is a Swedish fellow. He works at a studio called The End Studios out in Sweden. And he's like a heavy death black metal producer and does a lot of cool shit out there, and makes like engineering videos and like how-tos and like how to mix and how to EQ a kick drum. So like when we were really big in producing our own music, that was a lot of good information that we would seek there, or at least I did. And I hit him up one day and I'm like, yo, like we would be super interested in maybe recording at your studio, and how much is it? And he hits us back up, and this is a few years ago, so I think things are a little different now, but way before COVID. And he's like, oh, it's $300 a day. So I'm like, okay, cool. So like the studio is $300 a day. I'm like, how much do you cost? And he's like, no, he's like $300 a day, studio, me, and you get to live in the apartment upstairs on top of the studio.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's all included too. Yeah. So we were like, oh shit, we can spend like 2 weeks out in Sweden for a third of the price.
And the plane tickets out to Sweden were like the same price or cheaper as the tickets out to Boston.
Yeah, at the time, I don't know what it was. You can't really touch plane tickets that cheap for now. So it's kind of fun. It sucks, and it's also kind of interesting that like if we wanted to do it again, I don't think we could do it again the same way. But it was kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. So we just started grinding after that, and just started making it work, and eventually like it just started coming up. I was like, oh shit, we're going to Sweden in a couple of weeks, boys. Like it's happening.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know the background. I didn't know Boston was ever in the mix. That's cool.
Yeah, that was definitely the huge consideration. The big thing was wanting to record the tape, a 2-inch tape, 24 track. And we're not going to take no for an answer on that.
And so, drums was a huge part of it too. We just had to have like good drums for
good drum selection
for the album. Yeah.
Yeah. All of which the End Studios had. But yeah, that was the lead up to it. And then we got there, ended up being a really cool experience. So It's an amazing, beautiful old studio. They used to make organs. It used to be an organ factory, and then they renovated it. The studio owner, oh god, he was an eccentric guy. He used to park his Ferrari inside of the studio in the winters. It wasn't there when we were there, but like in a lot of videos and other stuff and other times,
There's just a Ferrari in the middle.
Just a Ferrari right in the middle of the studio, just chilling, which I think is the coolest thing ever. But
that's right. Keaton asked in the chat what type of organs were made there.
Oh, I have no idea. Like the grand cathedral ones that were like built into like the churches and shit like that. Like they were like melding brass and stuff in there, supposedly. I'm not 100% sure.
And then, so talking, getting back into like foreign words specifically, we went out there with like, I don't know, 60% of an album or 3/4 of an album.
Yeah.
And
not enough.
Our idea was to kind of improvise it in the studio, the parts that we didn't have, and just like live comp certain areas of certain songs together. Was that something that you think was a good idea? Did we pull it off, or should we have just finished the damn thing before we went out there?
We definitely should have just finished the thing before we went out there, but I think we were in a weird position in the way we write music, is definitely not of the norm or easy by any means. We definitely make it harder on ourselves than we have to at times, or at least I do for sure.
Go ahead,
yeah.
Well, I was just going to say a lot of what kind of came together was stuff that I think we, in a certain way, felt inspired on once we were out there.
Yes.
So, I guess in a way, like it would have been more comfortable to go out there with a fully finished product, but it would have been different, I think, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, like from a professional standpoint, we should have had like actually written a record before we went to go record it. But from the creative standpoint and what we got turned out pointed, like that not having it finished and finishing it out there added to the vibe of the record. And it would have been completely different had we gone in with a completed thing. And we were very open to Ulf's input for production, and the last track, Wasting Time, was written pretty much in the last 2 days of us being there, and literally putting final tracks on the last day before we're leaving. And it felt good. It felt kind of fun, and like leading up to the wire, and like we needed to do something. It didn't feel fun in the first couple days when we weren't getting very much stuff done.
I was going to ask, did you guys feel like a lot of pressure at any points?
There was immense pressure at the beginning, like
just because I'm an asshole. Only because
it wasn't. It was a little bit of that, but it was mostly like, I don't know, drums. For me, like having to put drums down first, basically to nothing, and on new drums that I've never played before, with like hella jet lag on the first 2 days, just like still catching up, basically. I felt really, honestly, fucking scared, and I remember specifically like trying to tune up one of my snares, like the main snare that I was going to use for the record, and just like not being able to get it in tune at all for like hours, just trying and not being able to do it. And then finally Ulf is like, yeah, maybe let me take a try. And then he takes a swing at tuning it, and like 5 minutes later, it's like the best sounding fucking snare I've ever heard. And I'm just like, normally I know what I'm doing. And then I kind of felt like that for the next 2 days. Like, I don't know how to play my parts. I don't know what parts to play. Like, it was pretty weird, but it all came together. Like, on the back half of the project, like, I think Robert could speak to that as well. Like, laying down some tracks and just being like, what the fuck are we doing? And then a day later, waking up and being like, okay, this is okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's
And
definitely
no, you go ahead.
I was going to say there's just definitely some, because I think we were also like thousands of miles away from home and had like a deadline where it's just like, it's not like we can come back in a couple months and like redo some tracks if like it ends up not being okay down the line, like it's just like do or die right now. But I think that ended up being a good thing.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's an incredible album. The title is Wasting Time. Highly encourage anyone listening to this podcast to go stream it immediately. You guys come out with that in like 2020? So when you released it?
We recorded it in 2019. I think it was released in 2021.
Oh, 2021.
October of 2020. No, it couldn't have been. Is it that?
I think it was 2020, October of 2020.
October 2020.
Okay. So we were in a little bit into COVID when you guys released it.
Yeah, basically we released it and we had plans to do stuff and then COVID happened. But another part of it too is we have obviously another guy in our band named Will. Big shout out to Will. I know we all know Will
on the pod.
Yeah, we definitely should. Will, I think, man, I kind of wish he was here right now because I want him to be able to speak to this too. But I think Will, in a lot of ways, kind of is the creative force behind Foreign Words in a lot of ways. Like, he's the finisher. Robert has a lot of really great ideas and he writes a lot of really great songs. And then Will comes in with just a whole different energy and is able to just transform songs. And I think that's kind of also a lot of what happened when we went to Sweden was a lot of Will's parts were unfinished. And he kind of finished them as he was tracking. And like, that's where the album, at least in my mind, as the drummer too, took a huge turning point. Was like Will's parts became like fully realized, and he's just like such a talented player. He's a huge part of like what makes the Foreign Words project what it is. So big shout out to Will. One question I did want to ask, just because it's something we've never really talked about with other people specifically, but it was something that Will kind of fronted the idea on. Maybe I don't remember specifically, but he coined the phraseology first of heavy versus dreamy as the concept for the record.
Yeah.
So what did that mean to you at the time, heavy versus dreamy? How did that reflect in like our songwriting at the time?
So it sounds kind of cheesy, but we were, Will and I were watching like hella Twin Peaks, like season 1, season 2, OG 90s show on, it just streamed. I think it just started on Netflix or something like that. So we were getting into that.
Talking David Lynch in one of the last episodes.
Hell yeah. Absolute genius. Absolute fucking genius. But, that show for some reason like resonated with me wildly, and the feelings that David Lynch is able to evoke out of like imagery and just the cinematography of it is just beautiful and truly make me feel like sometimes I'm like tripping balls and I'm completely sober watching his stuff. But I loved that dreamy aspect that was in there, and that kind of just really resonated with me, and that kind of just like very much out there kind of ethereal kind of just weirdness. And we were also super hard into metal at the time, any kind of metal, post metal, black metal, hardcore, just everything and anything. And we really wanted to dive into this idea of, again, contrast. So very, very darks. But if you have the very, very darks and you don't have the very, very lights, then you're not going to know what the very, very darks are. They're not going to be as impactful as the very, very highs. So we started incorporating that into our music. So it's like, well, if we go one step into this direction, then we have to at least take 1 or 2 steps in the other direction to counterbalance it. And then it just kind of stretches. And I think that can sometimes be a detriment. And there definitely were some songs and stuff that got scrapped and ideas, and definitely some stuff now that I'm not even the biggest fan of. But all in all, I think it was of the time very much, and I wouldn't take it back or anything. So
definitely. I think for me and Will specifically, I don't know about you as much, but we also drew a lot of musical influences from specific people at the time. I remember talking about like, specifically Sharon Van Etten and her style her like kind of dreamy aesthetic style. And then I remember talking specifically about like, you know, Ed Breckenridge from Less Art and trying to mimic like that exact bass tone.
Yeah.
So I guess that is just to say we were trying to take like a lot of random influence, but not necessarily from full groups, but rather from individual musicians and individual songwriters. Is that something, because I know now we're like trying to write new songs, is that something you still find yourself doing? Because I don't really know if I'm in that place as much anymore, where I'm listening to a specific person and thinking, man, I really want to sound like that. Or if I'm more so just trying to float out there in the ether on my own. And I guess that question applies to Keaton and Colin and Cam as well. All musicians, like, you know, who do you find yourself like really drawing musical influence from at this point?
Who wants to go first? That's a big one.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I can't really speak to like right now who I'm specifically drawing influence from, but it is, I do rely on like inspirations so much, because I always reach a point in any song where I hate it and I'm like ashamed of it, and I need to like find a song I do like and be like, what do I like about this song, and kind of root it in that and go from there. So like I said, it's hard to say right now, but like on the first Wax Romantics EP, I was going to Vampire Weekend a lot. And then on the second one, there was like a lot of 80s stuff. I always go to the Smiths and Johnny Marr for like guitar styles and stuff. Yeah, I can't say like right now specifically who, but I'm definitely try to draw or use inspirations as a crutch for sure. Or I just find comfort in being like, let me try to model this some way in something that I like and something that has proven success, I guess.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Like when we were making the first record and we were younger, also like not too much younger, but a little bit. I think a big part of it was like trying to find the relevance in our tunes by like finding people that we like and being like, oh, we kind of sound like that. We were kind of influenced by that. And therefore what we're doing is kind of relevant, at least in our vein of things. But I've kind of let go of that now a little bit.
Yeah, I always love when I show an early version of something to someone, they're like, oh, that sounds like this person. I'm like, oh, great. Let me try to rip them off even more then. Great. Let's see what I can do. Yeah. Let me listen to all their discography. But yeah, it's interesting.
I've always had a difficult time kind of taking influences and melding them into my own. But one of my favorite quotes ever is from Picasso. And I think, what did he say? He said, good artists borrow, but great artists steal. And I think you can see that through time. You always have the lawsuits. Everybody's suing each other. Everybody's taking inspiration from each other. But at the end of the day, it's just music, man. And shouldn't be about the money or about like how many people listen to it or anything like that. But it's about like how it makes you feel and how you can touch others with it. Or at least that's how it is for me. So while I do also, yes, have the same things where it's like I have a tendency to feel guilty if I do like listen to something, I'm like, that sounds so badass. I want to do something like that, you know. But at the same time, it's like that's what it's all about, because that person that did that heard something that inspired them to do that, and it was probably something that we wouldn't even make a connection to, but in their minds it was. So I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. But
yeah.
Very well said.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm glad you used that quote. Sorry, Keith, go ahead.
I just said I agree.
Yeah, I know, because all my or a lot of my favorite musicians have pretty shamefully stolen. You know, I cite Oasis on this podcast a lot, and they're pretty much just coked out Beatles. So, and they've admitted to it.
Nice.
You guys want to do album reviews?
Oh,
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right. Robert, totally up to you. Not to put you on the spot, but do want to give you the opportunity to go first if you so choose to. And I guess first I should say the theme. The theme this week is we've picked albums that we don't like, albums we've always identified with as not liking, but we're trying to kind of be fair and even give them somewhat favorable reviews. So that's the theme. And Robert, if you want to go first, go ahead, but no pressure.
Sure. Yeah. My pick is kind of a new album, but I have pretty much disliked since the day it came out. Or they released a single. Yeah, no, since the day the first single came out, I was like, this is fucking bullshit. But Tool's new album, Fear Inoculum, I hate that record. I really can't stand that record in any way, shape, or form. And I'm a very big Tool fan. I think they're masterful, a few of them. And I think they have had bounds and leaps of inspiration on their genre and expanding genres as well, and the whole music industry as a whole. But for some reason, every time I listen to that record, I just am evoked with anger and rage and just boredom, most of all. I even saw them live at Ball Arena like a month ago, and it was just as boring. I don't know. It was really hard for me.
The show wasn't good?
No, I mean, it was a fantastic show, and like Tool is awesome, but it's just, I think the problems that I have with the record kind of carried over, maybe where some of them were confirmed. But to speak light to the album, though, to try to give it a fair shake, most other people that I've talked to that are casual Tool fans and like pretty devout Tool fans, like really like the album and think it's a pretty badass record. And I don't quite, I mean, I know why I don't like it, but I don't quite know why the reason why I don't like it doesn't translate to other people quite as well. But mostly just the fact that it's fucking boring as hell. There's not any moments on it that even reach somewhat the excitement level of any of their records. Like maybe it meets like a 5 or a 6 on their grand scale, and that's like the climax of the record. And I don't know, it's really hard to justify. I think, in my opinion, it was like a bunch of 50-year-old dudes getting together and just phoning one in to sell a few million records. That may be kind of harsh to say, but
it should very well be true.
I think they're like an audiophile band, right? And yet that album sounds boring.
Mm-hmm. They didn't record it to tape, which is fine. But the record literally starts out with that, I can't remember what instrument it's called, but it's a little thumb kind of piano thing that Evil Joe Barresi, their producer, uses. And it's on the first track for the record coming in, and it's on the first track for the last record that came out on Vicarious. And it's almost the exact same thing. So it's like they're trying to harken back so much to their old days, but never actually reach the heights of it. But in doing so, I think they did kind of create some cool stuff that is somewhat new. And like definitely the track like Chocolate Chip Trip is never been done. Sorry, got some shite. But
sort yourself out, mate. Sort yourself out. It's professional broadcast.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be right back. I'm gonna get some water. It's a good idea.
That's I haven't given the new Tool album an honest listen through. I just kind of skimmed a few tracks, and that I'm glad to hear a hardcore Tool fan say that, because that would have been my kind of first. It's like it sounds a little like Tool,
fucked up.
Yeah, almost like a just boring imitation of Tool.
It is very phoned in, and like, I guess the thing that sucks about it, like, hardcore Tool fans waited like over a decade for a new Tool record, and like, I don't know why make people wait for so long and then put out some fucking tepid, lukewarm bullshit. Like,
oh, good. Okay, good. He's back again.
No, totally. Like, I don't consider myself as much of a Tool fan as you, I don't think, but like I do really like Tool and
Well, we have to say nice things though.
I mean,
it's hard.
it sounds decent.
Yeah.
It's not like a bad sounding record. The songs are decent,
No.
but like considering how long they had to work on the damn thing, it's like it didn't live up to my expectation at all because I was expecting something next level through and through, and it just isn't that. It's like, yeah, it feels phoned in.
So I guess the nicest thing I could say about the record would be that if any other band had released that and it was like their debut record, that would be like the coolest fucking thing ever, you know? Like really fucking dope. I mean, obviously they didn't sound like Tool, but for being the follow-up to one of the greatest rock albums of all time by one of the greatest bands of all time, it was just very disappointing to say the least, in my opinion. But overall as an album, it is a very, on a Tool level, it's like a 6 out of 10, but on like a musical level, it's like an 8 out of 10, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's a cool way to look at it. Like, if I just heard this randomly from a different group, my mind would be blown. But yeah,
right,
in the
yeah.
context of Tool. Yeah, so I dig it. Good review, man.
Thank you.
You're giving it 6 Waxies then?
No, 2 Waxies.
Oh, 2 Waxies. All right.
2 out of 10 for your Inoculum. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
2 out of 10 of the songs are bearable. So 2 out of 10.
Gotcha. All right. Anyone want to volunteer to go next?
I think we should do a popcorn style.
Oh yeah, good call.
I like that.
That's always works best. Robert, popcorn someone.
What does that mean?
Yeah, just choose someone to go. You must have not gone to public school, huh?
No, I never went to school at all. I was raised by wolves, and then the wolves didn't want me, so they gave me to the tigers. And the tigers didn't want me either. So,
So you have kind of a feline sexual energy. Finally makes sense.
What the
if you get me, I don't know, if you get me going. No, I love that. If you get me going good enough, I will.
Yeah, Colin thought he was on mute.
Yeah. It's fitting that I'm going after Robert because I also picked a Maynard James Keenan record, but I picked a Perfect Circle record, their latest, which is Eat the Elephant, and kind of again, like, I guess I picked it for most of the same reasons that Robert picked for Inoculum. It's their 4th album after like a 14-year hiatus, and so it was just like a long time for buildup, and then what they put out was like kind of a turd. Some of these songs were like started all the way back in 2008, but Maynard James Keenan and Billy Howardell kind of had like creative disagreements as to like where to take some of the songs, because Maynard wanted shit to be heavy and Billy kind of wanted to go in like a different, more like atmospheric kind of pop influence direction. So basically all those sessions that were started in 2008 were not resumed until 2017. And then the record was put out in 2018. I remember like when the singles came out, how fucking stoked I was to like hear the new Perfect Circle, and then how disappointed I was like pretty swiftly by all of the singles. And I guess for the reasons why I don't really like it are just because it's production wise not very interesting. Like everything is pretty much exactly the same volume, so there's not really any like highs or lows on the record. The heavy stuff is like not that heavy. There's like really minimal drum performance, I feel like, overall, and like very minimal bass performance as well. But to try and say some good things about it, first of all, it did get relatively good critical reception. Most of the critics were okay with it, at least. No one like outright hated it. It debuted top 4 on the Billboard charts when it came out. It had a lot of different lyrical focuses, like between kind of our overall societal shift and focus on technology, into like kind of some talk about religion and just like socioeconomics and politics. But all those lyrics, in my opinion, do come off as like really preachy, because like Maynard is pretty much just saying like, you know, the world is falling to shit and it's because you're on your phone too much, and like you need to quit being a sheep, and like it's just like a rich dude kind of yelling at me, and I don't really like that very much from my music. Kind of puts me off like throughout the whole record, because it's just like not really emotionally derived lyrics. It's mostly like he just sounds fucking annoyed with everybody, which again, just not super pleasurable when you're listening to music that's supposed to be like heavy and emotional. And then just kind of all the like song switches, like they tried to kind of like, again, balance some heavy shit with some pretty shit, and there's not really any transitions, I feel like, from heavy into the like soft. They kind of just go like directly from section to section, and it's always like super awkward and super like jagged and just weird. Like the songs don't make sense, because what you would expect to hear is not where they go at all, which if you're being experimental and you have finesse and you are able to write with subtlety, you can pull it off. But like there's no real subtlety in these songs. They just kind of like exist in rough sections that are stapled together. But the production is good. Everything sounds okay. It's definitely got moments on it where I'm like, this is interesting. I think the first song on the record is pretty good. The title track of the song of the whole record is the first song. And then it just goes downhill. Like every song is gradually a little bit worse until the end of the record. And honestly, the last like 3 songs on the record are just not listenable for me. Like I don't listen to them. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'll leave it, I guess. Trying to review it favorably is, again, is hard for me because I just think it's kind of a piece of shit, but it does sound good. It does have good production value. I do respect Billy Howardell's at least attempt to go into like some pop influenced, like kind of atmospheric, like more emotional songwriting. But I think it's all just ruined by Maynard kind of being a grumpy old man. And then the parts that are heavy are just so saturated by the production that they don't reach any emotional height of any kind. So I also give that record 2 Waxys. And that's because I'm feeling fucking generous.
Damn. I like it more than that. That's interesting.
It didn't age well for me. I think when it came out, I kind of was like, you know, it is what it is. But now that some time has passed, I feel pretty comfortable saying it's not good, and it doesn't hold up like really in any way. It's not still relevant. It doesn't sound as good as some shit that has come out since. And honestly, like if you listen to this and then go backwards and listen to 13th Step, I think 13th Step still sounds better and more interesting overall. Yeah. So yeah. I will popcorn over to Cam.
Good review, Julian. Or I guess bad review, but
Thank you.
I was really torn. I think I was in a similar boat as Keaton, where I feel like I don't dislike any albums in their whole. Like for the most part, I pick out like 1 or 2 good tracks. And then I realized that's probably true for most of these. So I was originally gonna do I was torn. So I don't know if you guys remember way back to the first podcast, I was gonna just review Donda for fun. And then I realized how much I fucking hate that album. But I feel like it's a good kind of like newer album that is super controversial. But I didn't really want to review Donda, so I considered like CLB and all the newer ones that are just kind of like bullshit. But I've kind of still torn between them. But what I want to say, but I'm not going to do it as my main review, kind of more of an honorable mention of an album I disliked. I'm really interested to hear your guys' opinion on Night at the Opera by Queen, which multiple of their famous tracks. I'm just not a big Queen fan.
What?
I know you guys are gonna react like this. I know.
I
Yeah.
think it's pretty good. I don't know.
I know. That's why. I know.
I do like
I
that record.
even go as far as saying it
Might be their best record.
genre-defying masterpiece. But
Exactly. I know.
It's
but
definitely a cornerstone record.
I know. That's why I wanted to bring this up, just to hear you guys' opinion on this. But I figured, there are like still multiple tracks I like off the album.
Overplayed, yes, and
that I think is where I got it from. And like I watched the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, trying to like hopefully like restore my faith in Queen. And that movie fucking sucked, in my opinion. It was Rami's worst performance to date on screen. So I don't know. I think that was just like some negative reinforcement right there. But I just kind of want to get like a hot take from you guys on that one, because I know Queen is such a monumental band.
hot take: Queen was good.
You got me, man. That's why I'm reviewing Donda officially. But yeah, so Donda came out August of last year. I think it was August, like I remember it was end of August last year, right before our birthday.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I remember because we went and saw Isaiah Rashad that month, like for my birthday celebration, and like my friends were like trying to like find a way for us to go see Kanye because he was on tour then. And I was like, dude, I'm not going to see a fucking Donda tour. Like I just can't do that. So that was really the only album in recent years that I can say that, like, because I guess I partly am still, like I was, and I guess I still am a big Kanye fan. But watching Donda come out, which to me, this might be like almost a pretentious thing to say, but like, it felt like the album felt to me like it was released as him saying, I can release like gospel music and it'll still like go down. Like people will still just accept it and like praise it for what it is. I don't know. To me, the album just felt like a whole, like just like there's a lack of effort in the album. Like so many of the tracks were just so interesting. Like Donda Chant, you open the album and you like Donda Chant. I don't know, man. Donda. It's so, it kind of grows on you, honestly. It's like an infestation. But then there was like all the controversy around it. Like Kanye himself wasn't that pleased with it because Universal, his producing studio, released it without his like verbal or written consent or anything like that. Like he wanted to wait another month of getting some fine-tune some aspects of it, and they just released it. And apparently, I can't recall the name of the song, but like one of the better songs in his opinion was just taken off the album entirely. Apparently, for its controversial.
It was the one with the baby, right? Because that was when the baby.
That sounds right.
Was it?
It wasn't.
Robert
shaking.
I think no. There was there was the DaBaby one, and there was the Andre 3000 one. But Andre 3000 like asked that song to be pulled because he was like, yo, this is just a diss track. I didn't fucking agree to that shit. But like
JL2, right? I'm like JL2.
Yeah, the one.
Yeah, that's the name of it. Yeah.
The one where literally Andre gives like one of the most beautiful verses of all time about like his mom and like the whole experience of like losing his mom and how much he misses her. And then Kanye just hops in. He's like, yo, fuck Drake. Drake can suck my dick. It's like, come on.
It's also the most Kanye thing ever. Like,
right?
But I mean, I know there was a big theme of motherhood in that album. Like it was the album was created as a kind of a dedication album to his mother, which I think is a very beautiful aspect of the album. So I'll add one waxy point to my final review in consideration of the fact that it was written with his mother in mind. So that's because that's pretty cool for Kanye. But and then the promoting thing, like there was just so much like share on the promoting thing, and I felt like for like months and months there were like not only like controversial news coming out of the album, but like memes and just like all this slander and just like weird revelations the artists.
So many memes,
dude. It was so great. And then to top it all off, the album cover is just a fucking black screen. Just black. Yeah. It's like such lack of effort on Kanye's.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed like it was his album saying, I made it. I can do what I want. Like,
when's the last time Kanye finished an album before it came out? Because isn't this like the third time in a row where he's been like, yo, like, I'm not releasing it yet because I'm not finished with it. And then like it comes out and it's like half done. Like, that's his whole business model now. And like he'll go, like I remember they like released it and then like a week later he like re-released a slightly different version of it, remember? But it was like exactly the fucking same.
Yep. I remember
like,
that.
Why, man? It makes you look like a fucking idiot.
Dude, he does
No,
so
he put
much
he
shit.
put a low pass on the kick in a couple of the tracks. And it wasn't 42 hertz, it was 48 hertz, and he had to update that. So
Oh, I'm so glad.
That's so
it
much
really
on
made the
album.
difference for that one.
That's hilarious. But I don't know, the whole thing just I was pretty excited for it. And I think the whole world was. And then like I think people, this is my humble, most likely incorrect opinion, people were just kind of like so obsessed with, not like obsessed with Kanye, but like so excited for this album release that they kind of accepted it for what it was and like might have even overlooked its many faults. And there are so great parts of it, obviously. But I think overall it was just almost a slap in the face to diehard Kanye fans. And then Certified Lover Boy comes out and it's like just as much of a, it's just so underwhelming.
Dog water.
That one might even be worse, honestly. But, no, I'm not even a Kanye fan, but I would say like I was even like really fucking hyped for Donda. I was like,
Right.
oh shit, Donda, the new Kanye is coming out. And like
It's gonna be
everyone,
great.
I was working at Chiba Hut at the time, and like literally everybody was just like, Donda. You get the stem player, like Donda.
Exactly. It was big news, man. And then speaking of shitty album covers, CLB is just the pregnant women emoji. It's just like,
I've got some opinions about Drake, but they wouldn't be safe to air here. So
we'll do a private screening after the official pod. It was fast Drake and Kanye. But and then there's just like
It's on
recent news, there's
OnlyFans.
so much. It's on OnlyFans. But
you gotta pay a little bit, then you get the saucy stuff.
Yeah, you get that dirty.
Hell yeah. So taking into consideration my improved by 1 point mother theme Waxy point, I'll give it like a 4 out of 10, maybe like a 3.5 out of 10 Waxys.
Robert and Julian, I respect both of you for picking an artist that you do like and reviewing one of their albums. I thought that was very brave and honest. And I'll preface this by saying I'm not a hater of the artist I picked. It's not someone I am a fan of necessarily, but I do respect them and what they've done. So anyways, that's my preface to this. I picked the Division Sign album by Ed Sheeran.
Oh my
Oh
my
yeah.
God, dude. What the
Nice.
that is so unexpected. That is like
Yeah, I love that. I'm not done the record, but yeah, I love that choice.
Yeah, and like I said, again, it's perfect. I'm not an Ed Sheeran hater across the board. I think he's a talented guy. You obviously have to be very talented to look like a bridge troll and still sell out stadiums while playing an acoustic guitar.
It's true.
He's like the third most streamed artist on Spotify too, maybe fourth.
Yeah.
I think he's
That's
third.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's
You got to think about all the
incredible.
Starbucks that just stream him around the clock. That's the part of it.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
True. Or all the people that think they're looking up the actor who played Ron in Harry Potter and they just stumble across Ed Sheeran and like, oh, this will do. This will do.
He's a musician now. That's amazing.
Exactly.
So why? And I will say, listening back to it, giving it a favorable review is easier than I thought it would be. My main experience with this album was, when it came out in 2017, you just heard Shape of You everywhere.
Yeah.
And I still maintain that Shape of You has got to be one of the weirdest singles of all time. And the fact that it blew up how it did is just so bizarre to me. It makes me, I don't know if you guys will agree with this, but it's hard to listen to for me because I can feel how hard they're trying on it, or he's trying on it. It's like a very awkward song. It's lyrically awkward, and that's what a lot of people latch onto, like the whole bedsheet thing. But just like the phrasing and everything. So anyways, I don't want to just review Shape of You, but I think that's kind of what influenced a lot of my feelings about this. And at the time it came out, which was March of 2017, that was like just a weird time, towards the beginning of the Trump presidency.
Yeah.
Pop music was in a strange place. that song was just blowing up everywhere. It really felt like things had gone pretty wonky in the world, that everything was going on, and this weird song about bed sheets was like blowing up. And then, you know, at that time I went and listened to the other songs, and like the other big single from that was, is it called Perfect? I think. Yeah, Perfect. And that's another one where people latched onto one lyrical thing, the dancing in the grass, or barefoot in the grass. Instead of grass, he said grass.
That's just stupid.
Yeah, it was a little frustrating to hear that. And I thought that was just kind of a benign pop song. And I was like, oh, is this really all we have right now?
Yeah.
This. So anyways, you know, and I did like earlier Ed Sheeran stuff. Like I said, I was never like a huge fan, but respected where he's coming from. I thought he had a great voice. And I think also part of why I don't like this album now is what he's been doing lately. I feel like Ed Sheeran's lost his way even more now with some of his singles. And not to say they're not good, but I feel like now he's just kind of more of a vessel, an empty vessel. Like he's just kind of lending his voice to other stuff. And maybe that's an unfair analysis, because like, you know, I'm not a huge Ed Sheeran fan, and, you know, obviously artists are allowed to evolve and change their sound, but some of the new singles that he's released recently has just kind of felt like, this is Ed Sheeran. Anyways, so I went back last couple of days, been listening to this album, and well, I still don't love it. I will say there's some great songs on it. And I guess part of my problem too is, and this is the case with a lot of pop albums now, is like the term album's kind of a stretch. Like this is really just a collection of songs, obviously recorded with different producers, recorded all over the world at different times. So I guess like it'd be more fair to call it almost like a mix tape potentially in that way. But, you know, I'm not even judging on that basis. Like, I guess I could, because it doesn't feel like a cohesive album. Like, it just feels like you have an Ed Sheeran playlist on shuffle, kind of. But yeah, like I said, you know, listening to the last couple of days, it has been easier than I thought to give it a favorable review, because there are some great songs on it. I was especially like, what impresses me about Ed Sheeran is that he can do kind of weird left field stuff and pull it off pretty well. Like the first song is, I don't know if you guys will be familiar with it all, but it's Eraser, and it's like a kind of finger picky acoustic guitar thing, but he raps over it, and he raps in his English accent. It kind of sounds like the Streets, you know, the English rapper, the Streets. And so that's the first song that comes on, and I was like, oh great, this album is as fucking terrible as I remember. But then by the end of the song, I was like, it's pretty admirable that he could pull this off. And then the second song, Castle on the Hill, that was another kind of big one that feels like a little overproduced, kind of like inspirational, something you'd see in, I don't know, some terrible movie. But outside of that, like, you know, the songs don't, again, to go back to, it's not like a cogent album. The songs don't flow well into each other. But then once you're like into one song, you're like, yeah, Ed Sheeran's a very talented guy. He's got a great voice. He can pull off what he wants to. And obviously this album was like massively successful. He had a lot of success before this, but this I think is still considered probably his most successful album. So all those things considered, I'll give it a 5 Waxys out of 10.
Wow,
a little high.
Strong.
That was strong. I actually have a very interesting story about that. It's a Shape of You song, if you guys want to hear it at all.
I would.
It's interesting that you brought that up at all, but this is going to sound a little bit pretentious, but I was in New York City, just happenstance, January 6th, 2017, when the song came out. And I remember I was like with my friend, and we were there for a couple days before and a few days after too. It was like literally 3 days before the inauguration of Trump. And it was a weird time in New York City. Like it was very politically charged for everything. And we were in this tiny little boutique in the morning, and all of a sudden we just hear this song. We're just like, what the f- is this? And it's like, oh, someone's like, this is the new Ed Sheeran song. We're like, oh, okay, weird. It's like day before hadn't heard the song. And then that day, all of a sudden, like taxis are driving by and the song's playing, and like you're in Times Square, and like the music video is on like the 20-foot tall, more than like the 100-foot tall like screens in downtown. It was just like very interesting experience. And then you had people also like smashing out windows in protest of the then president-elect. So it was a very interesting time. But yeah, Shape of You.
What a bizarre
I have
scene.
weird memories of Shape of You. And yeah, even on like the way to the airport, in the every taxi you'd get in from that point, it was the only song that you would hear. And it's interesting.
Yeah. Part of the reason I'm kind of obsessed with Shape of You is like a weird song. The show I've mentioned now several times on this show, the radio internet program Time Crisis, which was Ezra Koenig's program. When Shape of You came out, they dedicated like 10 episodes to Shape of You, just really breaking it down, every single lyric.
What?
Kind of how weird it was. It was really great. Yeah. Each time like a different hilarious take where they'd like latch on to one thing. Like one episode, for example, was like just talking about the line, we talked for hours and hours about the sweet and the sour because they're at a Chinese buffet. And like, you know, they would just get as like drilling that finally.
But like, is there actual meaning to any of it, or is it all just gibberish?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's very literal. It's 100% about him going to a Chinese buffet with the girl. They steal food and his bed sheets smell like her now. You know, that's what the song is about. Yeah. Yeah, but like I said, you know, when that song was just being blasted at 2017, like strange time in my life. And I do just remember feeling like really, because like that was towards the start of my college career too. And I was like, it doesn't feel like how life is supposed to feel like, man. Like, there's not even a good pop anthem right now. So yeah, it just got me down. But you know, being a little more detached from that and coming back to the album, I did enjoy it relatively. So
good for you.
know,
I don't think
shout out Ed Sheeran. Yeah. Well, guys, great episode. Robert, thanks so much, man, for coming on.
Yeah,
it was great
of course.
Hearing about your photography and foreign words, and we hope you'll come back on the podcast soon.
Heck yeah. Thank you guys for having me so much. It was very nice. Definitely new for me. First time Zoom. So
good to see you again, Robert.
Yes, good to see all of you again. I hope to see you all in person very soon.
Oh, for sure.
We got to do that music video. Not to spoil anything for anybody.
Oh yeah, we'll do that.
It's a nice teaser.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit.
And Colin, once more, congratulations on welcoming Mr. Klaus into the fam.
Yeah,
thank you.
Beautiful doggo.
Yeah, Robert,
Doggo.
I don't know if you heard. I got adopted a new dog today.
Julian told me a little bit ago.
Boy named.
Congratulations, bro.
Yeah, how old is he?
You. He's 14 months, so a little bit out of his puppy phase, but you know, still a puppy and
still a young buck.
Yeah,
still a good boy.
I'll tell you guys this story really quickly. Sorry, not to keep you online really long, but
I want to do this all night.
It was serendipitous how it happened. We took Lola to the Cherry Creek Dog Park in Denver 2 Saturdays ago now. It was our first time going to the dog park. Really nice dog park. It's like this huge open field and people have their dogs loose and all these dogs are just running around. Anyways, we're walking and Klaus ran past us, this really pretty little black lab mix. And he gave us this really sweet look as he ran past. And I noticed he had a bandana that said "Adopt Me." And Julie and I have been kind of talking about wanting another dog for a while because we have a dog already, Lola. Lola's best friend and the dog she grew up with was named Milo. And we had to put Milo down, sadly, last summer. So since then, we've kind of been like, Lola should have another companion. So yeah, Klaus ran past us. It's not an Adopt Me thing. We were watching him and he was just like following the foster mom lockstep, like when it leave her side. And part of it too that drew me in is he's so skinny, like he's really underweight. So, I saw that, I was like, oh man, this sweet poor dog like needs to be adopted. He's underweight. At that point, he was walking with a limp. He doesn't permanently have a limp. He just hurt his pad. But I was like, oh, this sweet guy with a limp walking. And so ran up. Yeah. So I ran up and talked to who I found out was fostering him. And I was like, hey. And so she told me where the shelter he was organized through and everything. So reached out, and then, I just heard back. This past Saturday, our application was approved. We got to meet him again on Sunday, and then filled out all the paperwork, and then picked him up today. So, anyways,
Congratulations, dude.
thanks, man.
Colin.
I'm excited.
Colin, would you say it was love at first sight when he looked over his shoulder at you and you made eye contact momentarily?
Yeah, I would it was a powerful moment, really locked eyes. I saw the adopt me bandana. It felt like this is meant to happen. Yeah. And then everything from then just was so easy, the easiest process ever. Filled out the thing real quick. I was worried we wouldn't get him because it's a popular shelter and lots of people put in applications.
Colin's a felon too.
Yeah, I had to hide my felonies on there. But and then right after a couple of days after the application, the woman I met who was fostering him texted me, and she remembered me, and she was like, hey, we met at Cherry Creek last weekend. When do you want to meet Klaus? So yeah, it's all good. And I mentioned this in the group chat. We were thinking about changing the name Klaus, but it has grown on me and it seems to fit him pretty well. So
it's a good name.
Might keep the name Klaus.
Strong name.
Yeah. Supposedly he knows some German commands, but I don't know German, so that doesn't help me at all. Yeah. But anyways, I was thinking about bringing him to rehearsal tomorrow, but I might wait a week or two since he's brand new to the house. I want to make sure he's been moved around so much. I want him to know this is your place now. Don't want to move around. So you guys will meet him soon. I don't know when.
Hell yeah. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Thanks, dude. But yeah, anyways, love you guys.
Love you, dude.
Love you, dude.
Love you, Colin.
Y'all.
Love all of you. For real.
Yeah, boys.
Big time.
Much love.
Much love for all you boys. You guys are fucking fantastic men.
Thank you.
You as well, Rob.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah.
Good episode too, boys.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you guys
Very
for
fun
having me on.
stuff. Yeah.
Very fun.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime. Come back.
Definitely. We'll have you on again. All right, boys.
All right.
Have a good night.
All right.
Yeah, you too, guys.
Peace.
You too,
Good night,
boys.
y'all.
Waxy Wednesdays with Wax Romantics.